Regional Research Results by Chris Reynolds, Reynolds Research Services, Inc. Just a brief introduction of myself. I'm a retired state employee, retired in '02, had about 26 years of experience with the Department of Commerce and Community Affairs. Retired as the Director of Research for that agency. During my career at the agency, I worked about half of my time in workforce development and about half of my time in economic development. And since my retirement from the state, I've worked on critical skills shortage projects probably in every region in the state so far. My job in this project was to pull together research from a variety of different sources, sort of a smorgasbord of research for the project. So the areas I'm going to be covering are information from the regional, information on the regional economy from the M-Plan model, 2006, regional perspectives from a number of different sources, turning points, which were surveys done of community leaders, career cruising, which was data on high school students' use of career information systems and the kind of careers that they chose, and interviews with Express personnel at a couple of their offices here in the region. We also, from the business survey that we did, provided shortage figures by region, industry, and occupation, and we'll be going over those. Employment trends are also covered, and we look at the actual supply and demand for these areas where there are shortages as indicated by the survey, business survey that was done. And finally, the impact root causes from the business survey indicated for the shortages and the solutions. So it's a lot of the data to chew on here. From the M-Plan model, this is, we took the three major sectors of which were the focus of this study, and we took a snapshot of their economic impact. This first one is for manufacturing. You can see the number of jobs that are indicated, employee compensation, which incidentally includes wages and salaries, fringe benefits, bonuses, and also the employer's contributions to Social Security. The 12.2 billion in direct economic output annually, and we indicated the top industry sectors within manufacturing: motor vehicle parts, commercial printing, fluid, power pump motor. And with these figures, we identified this particular industry as about 14% of the regional economy. The sources that feed into this economic model include data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, what's commonly technically known as the ES-202 system, which comes off the unemployment insurance tax system. That's where most of the employment data comes from. Healthcare. As you can see, the employees there for healthcare in the region, employee compensation, which we talked about, and the millions of dollars in direct economic output, which includes sales and revenue plus inventory, and it does not include an indirect economic impact. The top sectors within healthcare: nursing, residential care facilities, hospitals. Those figures all indicate that this particular industry, healthcare, is about 8.9% of the regional economy. And the final major area we're looking at is transportation, distribution, and logistics. There's your full-time jobs there, your employee compensation figure, the direct economic impact annually, and the top sectors within this area are truck transportation, courier and messengers, postal service, warehouse and storage. About 4.6% of the regional economy. So it gives you a sense of these broad industry categories, what piece of the economy they entail here in the region. The next set of research we looked at was selections of occupations that kids made when they went on a career information system at their school called Career Cruising. And these occupations are there by the number of hits, and we used information from all the area high schools in the region. So as you can see, the occupation that got the most hits or the most interest from students were teachers and professional athletes, which of course there's some high hopes there with that one. Child and youth workers, athletic and training coaches, nurses, heavy equipment operator, video game developers, fashion designers, and therapists were the top 10. These are just the occupations that at that age, at a sort of an immature age, kids are taking an interest in, looking up more information on, and those are the top 10. I think there's the last one, computer and network specialists. Next, we did a series of meetings around the region, asking community leaders to give us their opinion on various issues through what's called a turning point process, where they sit at a computer and respond to questions. Here's some of the sort of random, not random, but sort of a sampling of the opinions of those people that were surveyed. 34% expect much higher labor markets. 37% said they would be in key occupations. 51% think difficulty in filling jobs is due to salaries higher elsewhere. 74% of the businesses use contract services. Folks were asked, what are the most important industries in the region? 26% said trucking, 26% said agriculture. Healthcare was also identified with 16%, educational services 16%. 70% believe that these important industries are growing. 40% think the region's greatest weakness in business expansion is the skilled workforce. There also was a sizable contingent of opinion leaders here who thought that 50% thought that taxes were still a problem with businesses in the area. 74% think the skill level of workers don't match industry needs, so that there's a mismatch between workers that are available for jobs and the jobs in the region. 75% know employers who cannot attract workers with needed skills. So that's just a sampling of some of the opinions that were taken from community leaders at the Turning Point, these Turning Point meetings. From interviews done with people at personnel services companies, temporary services in the area. These are some of the opinions that were heard. Blue-collar jobs not attracted to females. These jobs not promoted by counselors, teachers, parents. Dirty jobs. They see a lack of focus on industrial arts, technical and vocational skills in the high school because of No Child Left Behind. Reliable transportation is a big issue. Some applicants willing to drive 50 miles if the pay scale is good. Absenteeism is a big issue with all companies. Average age of their clientele is in the 40s, which seems relatively old for the area, but matches up with the median ages, I suppose, in the area. Employers use temp services rather than spend dollars on training because people will leave in 3 years. Benefits are important to employees, but salary first, stability second, then location and benefits. So that's a sampling of opinions from interviews done with temporary agencies in the area. Now some of the results of the business survey that was done. 25 healthcare facilities were surveyed, and they found a shortage of 93, 7 different occupations in the region for occupations. 8 facilities indicated had RN shortages. Total amount of those shortages was 21. 4 facilities indicated therapists, had the therapist shortage of 9. 4 facilities indicated an LPN shortage of 10, and 3 facilities indicated a CNA, certified nurses assistant, shortage of 28. 2 facilities in the North region indicated medical assistants. with a shortage of 3, and office workers 15 in the west region. One facility in the north region saw residential health attendants 2 and social service counselors 2. This is in the health field, healthcare. To look at the actual supply and demand situation, keep in mind that those shortages were fairly small, but the actual demand for these occupations, first of all, this particular area is projected to have about 1,240 new jobs, so it's one of the fastest growing industry areas in the region. And from the Department of Employment Security's occupational projections, which they use as a base year 04 to the year 2014, they put together a figure over that 10-year period for annual job openings. And these annual job openings will include not only new jobs, but also jobs that need to be replaced. Their annual job openings indicated that 71 RNs would be needed every year, 52 social service counselors, 39 certified nurses aides, 18 home health aides, 16 therapists, 9 medical assistants, and 15 LPNs. Compare that with the number of educational completers annually, and what we did was call the actual community colleges and ask them how many educational graduates, completers they would have in their last school year. And we saw a very large number of RNs, 261, 12 counselors, 664 CNAs. There was no figure available for home health aides because there may not be any training available. Therapists was 47, medical assistants 47, LPNs 196. So in most cases in the healthcare field, it appears as though the educational institutions are indeed churning out a large number of graduates into the labor pool every year, more than enough in many cases, at least with RNs and CNAs and medical assistants and therapists, probably more than enough to supply that annual demand, annual openings demand. So the question becomes, what happens to all these other graduates, and why aren't they staying in the area if local facilities are indicating, even though it's small, they're still indicating a shortage. Now manufacturing. 47 manufacturing facilities indicated a shortage of 197 in three different occupational areas. These are broad occupational areas. There's a lot of detailed occupations that could be identified under each of these areas, but we tried to cluster them and group them in larger areas. So for 26 facilities indicated that machinists and machine operators there was a shortage of 142. 18 facilities indicated production, material handling, and maintenance workers, a shortage of 45. And 3 facilities indicated first-line supervisors and manager of production workers shortage of 10, and that was solely in the north region. All of these, of course, are regional figures unless I indicate otherwise. And again, these are broad occupational areas. Within each of these areas, there's a number of different occupations, especially machinists, machine operators, production material handlers. There's probably 20, 30 different occupations that could be identified within those areas. Manufacturing, so here's the supply and demand information on manufacturing jobs. Unlike healthcare, manufacturing is not growing, but they appear to be holding steady, and from the iPlan data, as you saw, they're still a very substantial part of the economy here, but their employment is pretty much holding steady, and most of the jobs, in fact, the vast majority of the jobs that will be created annually for manufacturing will be replacement jobs. In other words, older workers, baby boomers, retiring, moving on. That's going to produce many of the openings. But as you can see from machine and machine operators, there's going to be 90 openings a year. Production, material handling, maintenance, 144 workers a year. First-line supervisors, 24. As you can see, there's very little supply coming out of the educational community. Current supply of educational completers, only 27 machinists and machine operators, only 101 production, material handling, and maintenance workers. Although in this field there may be more occupations that don't require training, so that that might be a healthy supply in that particular area. First line supervisors and managers, there were only 6. Of course, first line supervisors and managers in manufacturing, there tends to be a lot of promotion from within, so there may not be as much call for people coming out of educational programs. But for the most part, there's not a tremendous amount, unlike healthcare, there's not a tremendous amount of supply coming out of the educational institutions to meet the demand for these occupations. The final area, of course, was transportation, distribution, and logistics. We surveyed the number of facilities. The total number of facilities were 27, which is missing on the slide. But 27 facilities were surveyed, and there was a shortage of 139 in 3 different occupational areas. 23 of these transportation, distribution, logistic facilities indicated truck drivers as a shortage. That's a pretty common trend around the state, and obviously in this region, 125 truck drivers are indicated as a shortage. Material handling workers, only 7, so a very small number. And in sales workers, also was 7. So the big story here is the shortage of truck drivers in the 23 facilities that were surveyed. The demand figure again, which is the IDES figure, shortage occupations in the region, truck drivers, about 68 a year, and you have a very large supply of truck drivers coming out of truck driver schools here in the area. TDL is actually growing and will rise to 7,470 in terms of jobs, 7,470 jobs in the next 6 years, and there'll be like quite a few new jobs. 190 new jobs are projected. So this is a growing field, but in terms of what the region needs for truck drivers, there would seem to be more than enough of a supply. But apparently people are being trained and going others. There's a great deal of mobility with truck drivers, different kinds of companies you can work for that are based in the region, outside of the region. There's long haul and short haul truckers. So there's a lot of specific sort of more detailed issues that can be pursued with regard to truck drivers. But it appears as though a lot of truck drivers are being trained, but they're not available to local companies in the region for some reason. So it's definitely one of the issues you probably want to take a look at. So a summary of our findings here. 128 facilities were surveyed in all. 99 or 77% of those companies that were surveyed indicated a shortage occupation. Manufacturing had the largest shortage, and that's primarily because of the replacement of its aging workforce. Healthcare, second largest shortage. They of course are a fairly fast-growing industry, a 10% increase, so they really need to have a labor pool to fill new jobs that are being created primarily. And TDL is also projected to grow, had the second largest shortage. Healthcare, I guess, had the third largest. TDL had the second largest, and it was, of course, primarily a truck driver's issue, which we've already discussed. Now we looked at, from the business survey, we looked at the effects of the shortage on businesses. Those that said they had a shortage were then asked, well, how does this affect your business? Ranked first in all the regions and all the sub-regions was they would use overtime, more overtime than they probably desired to fill in for the lack of staffing, the shortage that they might have. This ranked first in all the regions, first in all the industries in all the regions except for TDL, and healthcare and manufacturing, all in one of the sub-regions, ranked it a little lower. But for the most part, that's how many of these industries are dealing with their shortage. Sometimes lose business ranked second. It ranked first in TDL, though, in the region and north and south. So That particular region, this is their first problem with a shortage. Also healthcare in the South region. Third, they provide more OJT. This ranked first in manufacturing in the West region, but overall it came in third. More recruitment, ranked second in healthcare in the North region, but overall came in about fourth across the regions and the subregions. Businesses were also asked in the survey what soft skills affected their shortage. And ranked first in the region and all the subregions, except in maybe a couple of the subregions, was absenteeism and tardiness. In other words, this probably means that they're having to dismiss employees, which creates vacancies that can't be filled, and that's one of the reasons. Unacceptable personal behavior came in second. This ranked first in healthcare in the West region and TDL in the South region. So this pops up first for a couple of the industries in a region, but came in second overall. Abuse of alcohol and drugs was ranked first in the TDL, ranked second in TDL in that region, in the South and the West. So this tends to pop toward the top for transportation, distribution, and logistics, but overall came in third among all the rest of them. Manufacturing also saw this as a more significant effect on their shortage. And finally, literacy and appearance ranked third, fourth, or fifth in all the regions and all the industries. We then asked businesses to rank their root causes that were major factors in their shortage. Salaries higher elsewhere came in first, pretty much across the regions and across the industries. Alongside of that, benefits were better elsewhere. The quality of life issues popped up with people saying they just preferred to live elsewhere, maybe in a large urban area or whatever. This ranked second in the West, so it rose a little higher in that particular region. Insufficient training programs also were cited. This ranked second in the West for TDL. Unaware of jobs ranked first in the West in the region for TDL. Dangerous and stressful jobs are now getting sort of to the bottom of the list. Inadequate transportation, child care support, and an aging and retirement incentives were toward the bottom. So the key ones there at the top: quality of life, salary and benefits. Unaware of jobs was also up there, at least in one particular industry in one region saw that very important, and insufficient training. We then asked businesses to tell us their solutions or strategies for the shortages, the major factors they think in the region. Greater outreach and awareness at high school ranked first and second in the regions and all the subregions. And I would think that would include not only awareness of occupations, industries, jobs available, salary and benefits, all those things. Were just not known by high school kids in the area. Second, provide OJT to upgrade skills was seen as a major sort of solution to the problems. This ranked second or third in the region and all the subregions. Improve K through 12 role in basic math and reading skills, ranked third in the region and all the subregions. And expand training in community colleges, ranked fourth in the region and all the subregions. As we move down these that were ranked, overcome negative image, ranked second in the South, ranked third in the North, ranked fifth in the region and the West. I would say that's probably a negative image of both an occupation and an industry that's referring to. Create alternative accelerated training programs. These are the ones that were ranked pretty much far down the list, ranked 5th or 6th in the region and all the subregions. Financial aid for students, ranked 5th, 6th, 7th in the regions and all the subregions. And then there were a whole host of things that came in sort of toward the bottom of the list. And you can see them listed there. Here are the conclusions that we came to in the different areas of research that we did. In terms of the economic impact, healthcare and TDL are important and growing industries in the region, but we can't forget manufacturing, which really has the biggest impact still. Even though their jobs are leveling off, they're hanging pretty steady. But in terms of pure economic output, they're still a very significant part of the economy. Healthcare and trucking, in terms of regional perceptions and opinions, rank very high as important industries, and they are seen as growing, and in fact are from statistics that we've looked at. 3/4 of those surveyed have a perception that employers are not attracting workers with the needed skills. Majority believe the region's difficulty in filling jobs is due to higher salaries elsewhere. So there's a general sort of opinion and perception that you can make more money if you leave the region. 77% of the companies identified a skill shortage in their occupation. Manufacturing has the largest shortage, and it's a considerable replacement problem, replacing workers that are retiring and leaving their jobs. And they really have a fairly small number of educational completers to provide a labor supply for these shortage occupations. TDL had the second largest shortage and there's a strong demand and growth in this industry, but they seem to have a potential supply of educational completers and truck drivers, but they don't seem to be keeping them locally for the local jobs. Healthcare has a big shortage. They have the strongest growth demand, and although they seem to have a good potential supply of educational completers coming out of the educational institutions in the region, they don't seem to be able to fill their vacancies with these folks. So for some reason, they're being educated here and they're moving out to other areas to work, either for a better quality of life, a better salary, better benefits, whatever the reason. The supply seems to be there, but they're still indicating difficulty in hiring people and shortages. Some of the causes and solutions, just the sort of the conclusions. Employers are using overtime or maybe losing business due to the shortages. Employers are losing employees due to absenteeism, bad behavior, and drug abuse. Employees believe salary, benefits, quality of life issues are major causes for their shortages because they're better elsewhere. Employees believe that outreach and awareness at the high school level about job opportunities is a major factor in the solution. OJT opportunities and K-4 focus on math and reading skills would also be a major factor.